Hi friends, thanks so much for watching this video. So I'll be teaching you here how to paint metal parts. So this is actually much easier than you might think because first of all, we're painting it wet on dry. Number two, the idea is to mix colors on the paper and you can use as many colors as you want. But one thing is to really mix those colors on the paper. Yes, you slightly blend them on a palette, but the idea is to see different shades of that green or red, whichever color you're using, and then everything else is kind of like an addition, or you're slightly creating different colors, but not like all the way just one color, like one gray, one shade of gray. So you don't want to just mix all these colors perfectly. If you would like to watch a full class, it is available on Patreon. It's a full-length class and I provide way more of it there. As a patron, you get a new class every week, but also I share many tips and I add links like previous classes. Let's say you need more information about creating natural grays in watercolor. So then there will be a link for that. And also I provide a sketch, reference, list of art supplies, and a community of artists like yourself. So you want to be part of it because then you feel this support, not just from me, but from everybody else. Next thing is those shadows. So how do you create natural shadows in watercolor? Number one, I always refer to color wheel. And then when we have these dark shadows over these rusty metal parts, what do? What I do is I use the colors that I already used for the metal parts, and then I will look for that complementary color of that main color. Let's say the main part of that metal is green. What's the complementary color of green? It's red. So you would want to make sure that we can see a little bit of that red in that blend for the shadow. Now let's hop into that class. This is a shorter version, of course, because it's on YouTube. But again, if you want to watch a full class and you want to join the community of artists, please join me on Patreon. The link is below. And the last thing, please like this video and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. First colors, I'm thinking I'm going to grab some red, some blue here, and it's going to feel like this. And then I'll just keep adding like other colors. So I'm grabbing more water. So this is my red, there's my blue here, and then what else? I'm gonna start mixing in like some of the browns. So basically just grab colors as you go. So this is my first blend, right? It's not clean, but the thing is that I am going to be mixing colors on the paper. Now you want a little more water, so you don't want this to be too dry because you want to have a flow. Actually, the best approach is to have something on that side to lift your paper, but I have a sheet, so it's a little different. I'm gonna grab more of that color here, and I want a little bit of green, so I just grab some green and keep going down. Now this part should be much lighter. I'm gonna clean my brush. I clean my brush, and this is just water, and I'm going through pretty quickly here. There you go. Now, this is the area where I was thinking dry brushing would really work. So, water-like ratio, and we keep going. So there's a lot of these areas that should be kept paper white, I'd say. So try to do dry brushing. I don't want to forget taking like the brown too. See the brown, the blue. Actually, way more blue would be nice. And we keep moving. There you go. This is the lamp. I cannot touch that, right? So I'm going to skip that. Go. This side also should have some dry brushing. The best way to do dry brushing is you basically don't have much paint on your brush. That's just the way it goes. It's hard sometimes not to grab so much on your brush, and I know that, but just keep trying. And let's see, what do I do here? This is the part, okay, so this would be actually a shadow here. So I don't need to color past this line, technically. Here, I have these, whatever that is, needs some light, so I'm just gonna keep it paper dry. And I'll continue with my round 8 golden too. And let's see, I stopped right there. So it's kind of like right here, but then I also have this piece here. And I'm gonna try to connect as many parts as I can. So this part, there's the metal part here. Overall this. So something like this, I guess. And then we keep moving down. Other colors, you can grab some Van Dyke Brown as well. Let's see. And then we're not thinking about these cast shadows yet. That's not important right now. We can do all that later. More water with that paint. I just grab like whatever water-like gradation I have on my palette, and I just keep moving down. So this is by far like, to me, it's the easiest approach, like to paint any like metal pieces. It's very different compared to like how I paint, of course, animals, right? I don't paint them like this. I don't paint pretty much anything wet on dry unless it's architecture. My thing is wet on wet, but this is a different thing, right? This is something completely different. So I keep moving down. I'm actually gonna grab way more blue. And now we're onto these nice pieces here, the elements. All this railing, or not railing, but the accents. Here we go, just pull it. We're just mixing colors on the paper. Go. And you're keeping it as transparent as you can, that layering, the initial layering. You want this to be transparent. So this part here. And I'm going fast because and I'm using so much water, it's actually harder to do the dry brushing, right? That's because I want to have this continuous flow of paint. That's the reason. And it's harder to do like dry brushing and to leave like some areas paper dry, but I'm gonna try here. So for example, like skipping parts like to keep them paper dry, like you can see here. But it is harder when you are having so much water on your brush. But it does look pretty when you skip like some parts. I have so much red on the brush. There you go. I'm actually grabbing like a little bit of indigo too. Go. This part dried a little bit, but I'm gonna reactivate it. And then what's going on in here? It's like this. It's the leaf. So kind of recreating that part, but nothing has to be perfect. So this is kind of this technique, this way, this approach is what makes painting like these architectural pieces, to me at least, much easier. It's just you keep moving and keep adding the colors, wet on dry. And this approach, like it works on any lamps. Like you can just paint all these metal parts wet on dry and just keep adding different colors, and you can see like how many different shades of like gray, I guess gray I have created, right? So for the shadows, what are we gonna do? So where's that shadow? Basically it's right here, and make sure this is dry before you do this. And then just perfectly around underneath it to recreate this cast shadow. Now the cast shadow kind of goes like this, and then all the way to here. So something like that. And then we can add a little bit of that here. So the shadows are stronger in a way on the right side. There you go. And then we have like these little parts. So I guess we can either show them now. Let me see what I can do here. So we have these little parts that are like showing through a little bit. So make sure you use the tip of your brush when you do this. Something like that. So we have like parts there showing. Now another part, and make sure this is all dry. I'm still checking with my finger just to make sure it's dry. Like for example, there's this accent here, and there's a cast shadow there, right? So I'm adding a shadow there, and my brush is pretty loaded with that paint, but it feels more like a water to milk-like ratio. And then on each side, and then this is the nice shadow here. Shadows are best like when you paint them, they look best when you create like a continuous stroke, when you don't go back and try to fix it, because otherwise it's kind of like you keep going over the areas, and it's not necessary when you paint these shadows. So let's see what's going on in here. I would have a shadow all the way here, and you know what, I might stop right there and first focus on the glass before I paint this, just because I want to have more room like to fill that area with that color of the glass. But I can add the shadow here since I already have all this paint on my brush. So all this. So fill this space, and then there's all these smaller parts, right? So here. Sometimes I'm not really sure what it is, so I just kind of add a little bit of a shadow. But we could go now toward the bottom here and work on these shadows. So same thing, I need a little more water, and let's see. So this is going to be the interesting shadow right here. You want to show, if you want to show a little more color in the shadow, so the shadow is not like so dark, just add more water to the blend. So this, and I'm going to actually use more water here for the top part. Wipe my brush a little on a towel since I had a little too much. There you go. And now just continue adding these elements. They're kind of getting darker a little bit on this side. And then I can grab a little more color. And add that on the bottom there. Now, what part is dark? It's like here we have a shadow, and here on the bottom again. So it's kind of like you're constantly looking for these cast shadows because they're not like everywhere, and they're not the same for sure everywhere. And then we can just add the line here, kind of go all to this part. So something like this. And the other shadows seem lighter, so we gotta keep that in mind too. So what I could do is just keep working on these shadows here. So I'm gonna add a little more water, water and blue to my shadow blend. And let's see. For example, this side here. There you go, some shadow here. This side would have a shadow. You're just constantly looking for shadows. Where can I add a shadow? Maybe over here. That works. And then what else? This part should have a shadow. And that's kind of filled with a shadow for the most part. But you don't see shadows everywhere. And let's see, this part would have a shadow. And I have to use the tip of my brush to make it thin. And there's this part of a shadow. It should be thin too. And this shadow is like a little softer, so I should use another brush and soften this from the left side, or from the right side, I'm sorry. And let's see, sometimes I have to go back and add a shadow on top of a shadow too, just to make it darker. That could happen. So let's see here, we have a shadow. So that's it for this painting. Please let me know if you have any questions, and we'll just continue exploring different lights in watercolor.